The invitation sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Not the wedding invitation. I'd already accepted that particular piece of expensive cardstock, with its embossed gold lettering and ribbon, that probably cost more than my first car. No, this was different. This was Claire's handwritten note, slipped into my jacket pocket this morning as I left for work, her perfume still clinging to the paper. Jack, I've invited Graham to the wedding. I know you'll understand. It's important to me that all the people who shaped my life are there. Love you. XOXO Claire. I read it 3 times, standing in my loft apartment overlooking the Fore River, watching the evening light turn the water into hammered copper. My reflection in the window showed a man in his early 30s, still in his work clothes, buttoned down and slacks from another day of IT consulting, holding a piece of paper like it might explode. Graham Foster, Claire's ex-boyfriend, the one she'd dated for 2 years before me, the one whose name still came up too often in her stories, always with that particular laugh, that specific tone that said more than words ever could. You've got to be kidding me, I said to my empty apartment. My phone buzzed. Mike, my best friend since college, responding to my earlier text about grabbing a beer. Your place, 20 minutes. I'm bringing the good stuff. Mike showed up with a 6-pack of craft IPA and the kind of concerned expression that meant Claire had already called him. He kicked off his work boots. He ran a small construction company and dropped onto my couch with the familiarity of someone who'd been doing it for a decade. So, he said, popping open a beer, Claire called me. Of course she did. She wanted me to talk to you. Said you were being distant about the wedding. Mike made air quotes with his fingers. What's really going on? Moan. I handed him the note. We own. He read it once, then looked up at me with wide eyes. She invited her ex to your wedding? Not just invited, made it sound like I'd be the bad guy if I objected. That's... Mike searched for words. That's some next-level manipulation right there. I sat down across from him, picking at the label on my beer bottle. You know what the kicker is? She didn't ask, she told me. Past tense, already invited him. What are you going to do? I took a long drink, letting the bitter hops sit on my tongue. I'm going to understand, just like she asked. Mike knew me well enough to catch the edge in my voice. Jack, I understand perfectly. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I understand that Claire thinks she can do whatever she wants, and I'll just roll over. I understand that she's testing me to see how much she can get away with. I understand that this wedding might need some adjustments to the guest list. Dude, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, nothing violent. Just making sure all the right people are there to celebrate our special day. I pulled out my laptop. Tell me, Mike, if you were going to really understand someone, wouldn't you want to know everything about them? Mike leaned forward, a slow grin spreading across his face. You're going to dig into this Graham guy. I'm going to understand him very, very well. It took me less than an hour to find Graham Foster's entire digital footprint. The man was a walking LinkedIn profile. Successful real estate developer, member of the Rotary Club, volunteer at local charity events. His Facebook was public, filled with photos of himself at various social functions, always impeccably dressed, always with that practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. And there, in his relationship status, was the detail Claire had conveniently forgotten to mention. Married to Melissa Foster. Well, well, I murmured, clicking through to Melissa's profile. She was pretty in an understated way, with intelligent eyes and a genuine smile in her photos. A pediatric nurse at Maine Medical Center. Her posts were sparse but warm. Pictures of hiking trips, her garden, their golden retriever. Nothing recent with Graham in the frame. I dug deeper, cross-referencing timestamps and locations. Graham's business trip to Boston 3 months ago matched up with Claire's girls' weekend in the same city. His late night at the office posts corresponded with Claire's unexplained absences. Mike whistled low. You thinking what I'm thinking? That Claire didn't just invite her ex to our wedding? Yeah, I'm thinking she invited her current side piece. The beer suddenly tasted sour in my mouth. I should have felt devastated, heartbroken, betrayed. Instead, I felt cold and clear-headed, like ice water running through my veins. This wasn't grief, this was clarity. So what now? Mike asked. You call off the wedding and let her play the victim? Let her tell everyone I got cold feet? That I couldn't handle her having male friends? I shook my head. No. Claire wants Graham at the wedding. She'll have him there. But I think Melissa might also appreciate an invitation. Mike's eyes went wide. You're going to invite his wife? Claire said all the people who shaped her life should be there. Well, Graham shaped his wife's life too. It's only fair. I found Melissa's email through the hospital's staff directory, publicly listed for patient families. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This is where I could back out. Ignore it. Pretend everything's fine. But you're not going to. No. I started typing. I'm going to understand. The email was simple, professional, and devastating. Dear Melissa, you don't know me, but my name is Jack Landon. I'm getting married in 3 weeks to Claire Westbrook. My fiancé has invited your husband Graham to our wedding. Given their history, I thought you might like to attend as well. I believe there are some things you should know about their relationship. If you're interested in meeting for coffee, I'd be happy to explain. Jack. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Mike stayed another hour, mostly in silence, both of us processing what I'd just set in motion. When he finally left, he paused at the door. Jack, man, are you sure about this? Once you start down this road, I'm already on the road, Mike. Claire put me here when she invited Graham. I'm just making sure I'm not traveling alone. That night, I lay in bed next to Claire. She'd come over after her yoga class, chattering about centerpieces and seating charts, and watched her sleep. In the dim light from the street, she looked peaceful, innocent even. Had I imagined the whole thing? Was I being paranoid? Then her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text notification lit up the screen. Can't wait to see you at the wedding. We'll find some time alone. Promise. She. I took a photo of the screen with my own phone, then rolled over and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Melissa Foster responded to my email the next morning. Coffee sounds good. How about tomorrow, 2 p.m., at Arabica downtown? I think we have a lot to discuss. Oh. I met her at the coffee shop, a trendy place with exposed brick and the kind of espresso machine that cost more than my first motorcycle. Melissa was already there, sitting at a corner table with a latte, looking exactly like her photos, but with shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there in the pictures. Jack! She stood as I approached, and we shook hands. Her grip was firm, professional. Thanks for meeting me, I said, sitting down. I wasn't sure you would. When a stranger emails you saying your husband is invited to his wedding, and there are things you should know, curiosity wins out. She sipped her coffee, watching me over the rim. So, what should I know? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd collected, the overlapping timeline of trips, the social media posts that told a story when viewed together. Finally, the text from last night. Melissa's face didn't change as she looked through them, but her knuckles went white around her cup. How long have you known? She asked quietly. 48 hours. You? I suspected for about 6 months, but I didn't have proof. Graham's good at covering his tracks. She looked up at me, and I saw something fierce in her eyes. Your fiancée, Claire, she knows he's married? Yes. And she invited him to your wedding anyway? She did. Melissa set down her cup with careful precision. That takes a special kind of person. Yeah. I leaned back in my chair. Look, I know this is insane. We just met. But I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Claire wants Graham at the wedding. She's made it very clear that if I love her, I'll understand and accept it. So I'm going to do exactly that. But I think you should be there too, as my guest. A slow smile spread across Melissa's face. It was the kind of smile that made me glad we were on the same side. You want to ambush them? Me with you. I want everyone to understand everyone else. Very publicly. Very thoroughly. I met her eyes. Claire thinks she's playing games with me. She doesn't know I've already changed the rules. Melissa was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, a sharp, bright sound that turned heads in the coffee shop. You know what? I've been the good wife for 5 years. I've ignored the late nights, the mysterious texts, the lipstick on his collar that wasn't my shade. I've been understanding. She said the word like it tasted bad. I'm done understanding. So you'll come? Oh, I'll come. But Jack, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. No half measures, no backing out. She pulled out her own phone. I have some things you should see too. For the next hour, Melissa and I compared notes like generals planning a campaign. She had bank statements showing expensive hotel rooms, screenshots of deleted texts she'd recovered from their phone bill, a whole folder of evidence she'd been collecting, waiting for the right moment. I was going to confront him after his company's annual review, she said. Didn't want to mess up his bonus. We have a joint account, and I wanted to make sure I got my share in the divorce. She looked at me with something like respect. But your way is better, more poetic. Claire loves poetry and drama. She's always saying she wishes life were more like the movies. I smiled. Let's give her a blockbuster. We exchanged numbers, planned our next steps, and parted ways with the kind of understanding that only comes from shared purpose. As I walked back to my car, my phone rang. Claire. Hey, babe. Her voice was bright, cheerful. How's your day going? Really good, actually. Just had coffee with someone interesting. Made some plans. Oh, anyone I know? Not yet, but you will soon. I unlocked my car. How's the wedding planning going? Ugh, my mother is driving me crazy about the seating chart. She doesn't want Graham near the head table, but I told her he's important to me, and she needs to deal with it. Your mother's probably just worried about appearances. Well, she needs to get over it. This is my wedding, and I want it perfect. There was that edge in her voice, the one that came out when she didn't get her way. You're still okay with Graham being there, right? You're not going to make this difficult? Claire, I promise you, I understand completely. Graham should definitely be at the wedding. In fact, I'm looking forward to meeting him properly. Really? She sounded relieved, surprised. Jack, that means so much to me. I knew you'd come around. Oh, I've definitely come around. Listen, I have to go, but let's have dinner tonight. Your place? I want to talk about the rehearsal dinner. Perfect. I'll make that pasta you like. Love you. Love you too, I said, and hung up before the words could taste any more bitter in my mouth. That evening at Claire's family home, a sprawling colonial in Cape Elizabeth that her parents had bought with old money and maintained with new money, I played the role of dutiful fiancé. I complimented her cooking, laughed at her mother Evelyn's thinly veiled criticisms of my career choice, and nodded along as Claire's father droned on about his golf handicap. But I was also watching, noticing. Claire checked her phone constantly, smiling at messages she didn't share. She mentioned Graham 3 times during dinner, each reference casual but deliberate. Graham always said the best wines come from small vineyards. Graham took me to this amazing restaurant in Boston once. Graham has such good taste in music. Each mention was a test, watching to see if I'd react. I didn't. I just smiled and agreed and played the part she'd written for me. After dinner, while Claire was in the kitchen with her mother, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Instead, I went to her bedroom. We'd been together long enough that I knew the code to her house, and found what I was looking for in her nightstand drawer, a burner phone. Cheap, prepaid, hidden under a stack of magazines. The text history was exactly what I'd expected. Months of messages between Claire and Graham, explicit photos, plans for secret meetups, and, most damningly, messages from just last week. Claire, can't wait for the wedding. Jack has no idea. Graham, you're really going through with marrying him? Claire, of course, he's stable, reliable. But boring. You're my excitement, best of both worlds. Graham, what about Melissa? Claire, what about her? She doesn't have to know. Neither does Jack. We can keep doing this forever. You're wicked. I love it. I took photos of everything, my hands surprisingly steady. Then I put the phone back exactly as I'd found it, and returned to the living room, where Claire was showing her mother fabric swatches for the bridesmaids' dresses. Everything okay, honey? Claire asked, looking up with innocent eyes. Perfect, I said. Everything's becoming very clear. The next week was a masterclass in deception. I played the excited groom, attending cake tastings and florist appointments, nodding along to discussions about bouquet arrangements and processional music. Claire seemed to relax, convinced she'd gotten away with it. Meanwhile, Melissa and I were building our case. We met twice more, always at different locations, always careful. She brought more evidence, credit card statements showing Graham's purchases at jewelry stores, items she'd never received, hotel receipts from the same weekends Claire had been out of town, a pattern of lies that stretched back over a year. The worst part, Melissa said over coffee at our third meeting, is that I still love him, or I love who I thought he was. That's the part that really hurts. I get it, I said. Claire can be amazing when she wants to be. Funny, charming, thoughtful. But it's all performance, all calculated. So what's the play for the rehearsal dinner? Melissa asked, pulling out her phone to check the calendar. That's this Friday, right? Friday night at the Portside. Fancy place, private room, about 40 people. Claire's parents are hosting. I pulled up the seating chart on my laptop. Here's what I'm thinking. We planned for another hour, refining details, anticipating reactions. By the time we parted ways, we had a strategy that would have made Sun Tzu proud. Mike called me that night. his voice tight with concern. Dude, I ran into Claire's bridesmaid Lila at the grocery store. She was asking me weird questions about you. Whether you'd been acting strange, if you were seeing anyone else. Claire's getting paranoid. Good. Jack, are you sure about this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I thought about the burner phone, the texts, the casual cruelty of best of both worlds. Mike, she already pulled the trigger. I'm just making sure everyone sees where the bullet lands. Friday came with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of perfect evening that makes Maine worth the brutal winters. The port side was lit up against the darkening sky, its waterfront location providing a picturesque backdrop for what Claire kept calling the perfect start to our perfect weekend. I arrived early with Mike, both of us in suits, playing our parts. The private room was elegant, exposed beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, tables set with crisp white linens, and enough silverware to confuse anyone not raised with old money. Claire's mother, Evelyn, was already there, directing staff with the imperious air of someone who'd never heard the word no. She gave me a tight smile as I entered. Jack, you're early. Wanted to make sure everything was perfect for Claire. How thoughtful. Her tone suggested it was anything but. Evelyn had never quite forgiven me for being self-made rather than trust-funded. Graham Foster RSVP'd, yes, I see. I still think it's odd, inviting an ex-boyfriend. Claire values all her relationships, I said blandly. Yes, she's always been sentimental. Evelyn's expression suggested she knew more than she was saying, but like many of her class, preferred to ignore unpleasantness. Well, I suppose it will be fine. Guests began arriving. Claire's bridesmaids, including the gossipy Lila, who immediately started taking selfies. My groomsmen, mostly college friends, who looked uncomfortable in their suits. Various relatives and family friends. The kind of people who measured their worth in vacation homes and country club memberships. Claire arrived in a cloud of perfume and excitement, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She kissed me quickly, then immediately started working the room, laughing too loud, touching arms, being the center of attention she always needed to be. Graham Foster arrived fashionably late, because of course he did. He was exactly as his photos suggested. Tall, handsome in a generic way, with perfect teeth and hair that looked professionally styled. He wore his expensive suit like armor and his confidence like a weapon. Jack! He approached with an extended hand and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Finally getting to meet the groom, Claire's told me so much about you. I'm sure she has. I shook his hand, matching his grip. Though I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. She's told me surprisingly little about you. Something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty, maybe fear. But he covered it quickly. Well, ancient history, you know. But I'm glad to be here to celebrate with you both. Oh, we're just getting started with the celebrations. I smiled. The night is young. Claire appeared at Graham's elbow, her hand lingering on his arm just a moment too long. Graham, you made it. Come on, I want you to meet everyone. She pulled him away, and Mike appeared at my side with 2 glasses of whiskey. That's him. That's him. He looks like every douchebag I went to business school with. Mike handed me a glass. So when does your mystery guest arrive? As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Melissa, outside. Ready when you are. Right now, I said, and headed for the entrance. Melissa stood in the doorway, and she dressed for battle. A simple black dress that was elegant without being flashy, her hair styled, makeup perfect. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who had nothing left to lose. You clean up nice, I said. So do you. She took a deep breath. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. You? I've been waiting for this moment for 6 months. Let's go make some memories. We walked into the private room together, my hand lightly on her elbow, looking for all the world like a couple. The effect was immediate. Conversations stuttered. Heads turned. Claire's face went from confused to alarmed in the space of a heartbeat. But it was Graham's reaction that was truly satisfying. He went pale, his drink actually slipping in his hand, whiskey sloshing over the rim. Melissa, his voice cracked on her name. What are you doing here? Graham, she smiled, bright and sharp. Surprise. Jack was kind enough to invite me. He thought I might enjoy celebrating with you. The room had gone quiet, everyone sensing drama, but not yet understanding the shape of it. Claire pushed through the crowd, her smile frozen on her face. Jack, who is this? Claire, this is Melissa Foster, Graham's wife. I emphasized the last word just slightly. Melissa, this is my fiancée, Claire. I thought since you and Graham are so close, she and I should get to know each other too. Claire's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, anger, fear, then a forced brightness that was almost impressive. How lovely. Graham, you didn't mention you were bringing your wife. I didn't know he was married, Lila stage whispered to another bridesmaid, her phone already out, probably live tweeting. That's because Claire didn't mention it, I said pleasantly. In fact, there seems to be a lot Claire didn't mention. Melissa, can I get you a drink? Champagne would be lovely. Melissa took my arm, and we walked toward the bar, leaving Claire and Graham frozen in a tableau of panic. The room erupted in whispers. Mike appeared at my elbow, grinning like a wolf. Dude, that was beautiful. That was just the opening act, I murmured. Evelyn materialized, her face tight with forced politeness. Jack, a word. Of course. I excused myself from Melissa and followed Claire's mother to a quiet corner. What exactly do you think you're doing? Evelyn's voice was low, dangerous. This is your rehearsal dinner, not some Jerry Springer episode. I invited a guest, just like Claire invited hers. Don't be coy. Graham's wife? Really? You said yourself it was odd that Claire invited her ex. I thought it would be less odd if his spouse was here too. More balanced. I met her eyes. Unless there's some reason that makes you uncomfortable? Evelyn's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just making sure all the people who've shaped our lives are here to celebrate. Isn't that what Claire wanted? Before Evelyn could respond, a commotion erupted across the room. Graham had cornered Claire near the windows, their voices rising despite obvious attempts to keep things quiet. Told you this was a bad idea, Graham was saying. Didn't think you'd bring her? Claire hissed back. You said he didn't know. You said he was clueless. The room had gone silent again, everyone watching the drama unfold. Melissa moved closer to them, champagne glass in hand, her expression serene. Is everything all right? She asked sweetly. You both seem upset. Everything's fine, Claire said through gritted teeth. Is it? Because Graham looks like he's seen a ghost. But then, I suppose I am a ghost in your relationship, aren't I? Melissa's smile never wavered. The inconvenient wife who's not supposed to exist. Melissa, please. Graham reached for her arm. She stepped back smoothly. Don't. You lost the right to touch me when you started sleeping with the bride. She raised her voice just enough that everyone could hear. Or should I say, when you continued sleeping with her, since apparently this has been going on for over a year. The room exploded. Gasps, shocked exclamations, phones coming out to capture every moment. Leela was definitely live streaming now, her face alight with malicious glee. Claire's face went red, then white. We're not. Oh, please. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the photos I'd taken of the burner phone texts. Should I read some of these messages? They're quite illuminating. My personal favorite is the one where you call me boring but stable. Really makes a guy feel special. Jack, I can explain. Claire reached for me, but I stepped back. Explain what? That you've been cheating on me with your married ex-boyfriend? That you invited him to our wedding so you could sneak off together? That you've been playing me for a fool while planning your best of both worlds? My voice was calm, almost conversational, which somehow made it worse. I understand, Claire, just like you asked me to. Graham tried to leave, but Mike had positioned himself near the door, arms crossed, looking every inch the construction worker who could bench press small cars. Graham froze. I think you should stay, I said. We're just getting to the good part. Melissa walked to the center of the room, commanding attention without raising her voice. I want to thank Jack for inviting me tonight. See, I've known about my husband's affair for months. I've been gathering evidence, preparing for divorce, being smart about it. But I was going to do it quietly, privately, protect everyone's dignity. She looked at Graham with something like pity. But then Jack told me about the wedding invitation, about how Claire wanted Graham there, knowing he was married, knowing Jack didn't know about their affair. And I realized something. She turned to Claire. You don't deserve dignity. Neither of you do. You deserve exactly this. Public humiliation. Everyone knowing what you really are. You wanted drama. You wanted excitement. Here it is. Claire was crying now, mascara running, her perfect facade cracking. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I cut her off. You thought I was safe, boring, someone you could control and manipulate while you had your fun on the side. You thought I'd never find out, and even if I did, I'd be too weak or too invested to do anything about it. I smiled, and it was not a kind smile. You were wrong. Evelyn tried to intervene. This is neither the time nor the place. Actually, this is exactly the time and place, Melissa said. In front of family and friends, just like a wedding should be. Honest, open, everyone seeing everyone else for who they really are. Graham finally found his voice. Melissa, I'm sorry. You never meant to get caught. She pulled an envelope from her purse. These are divorce papers. I'm filing on Monday. My lawyer says I have an excellent case for infidelity. And given your joint business accounts, I should do quite well in the settlement. She handed him the envelope. Consider yourself served, in front of witnesses. The room was in chaos now. Some guests were leaving, others were recording everything on their phones, still others were arguing amongst themselves about what they'd seen. Claire's father was red-faced, shouting at Graham. Lila was providing running commentary to her phone camera. Claire grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Jack, please, we can fix this. We can fix what? The lies, the cheating, the complete disrespect? I gently removed her hand. Claire, the wedding is off. I think that's obvious. I'll have my things out of your place by tomorrow. My lawyer will be in touch about canceling the venue and other arrangements. You can't just leave me like this. Watch me. I turned to the room, raising my voice. For those of you who were planning to attend the wedding next weekend, I apologize for the inconvenience. The ceremony has been canceled due to the bride's ongoing affair with a married man. However, please feel free to stay and enjoy the open bar tonight. It's already paid for, and it seems a shame to waste it. I walked toward the door, Melissa beside me, Mike falling into step behind us. As we left, I heard Claire's voice, shrill and desperate. This is all your fault. You ruined everything. I paused at the threshold and looked back at her. This woman I'd almost married, now revealed in all her selfish, manipulative glory. No, Claire. I just made sure everyone understood. Just like you asked. We ended up at a dive bar near the waterfront. The three of us, me, Melissa, and Mike, sitting in a booth with cheap beer and the kind of relief that comes from dodging a bullet you didn't know was coming until it was almost too late. So, Mike said, raising his bottle. To understanding. To understanding. Melissa and I echoed, clinking our bottles together. That was the most insane thing I've ever seen, Mike continued. And I once watched a guy try to fight a bouncer while dressed as a lobster. Melissa laughed, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. I can't believe we actually did that. I keep waiting to feel guilty, but mostly I just feel free. You should feel free, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. You just told the truth. So did you. She looked at me with something like admiration. When you first emailed me, I thought you might be crazy, but you were just done being played. We both were. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since we left the restaurant. Messages from Claire, from her parents, from various wedding guests. I'd turned off notifications after the first dozen. There would be time to deal with the fallout later. Right now, I just wanted to sit with two people who understood what it meant to be honest, even when it hurt. What are you going to do now? Mike asked. I mean, you had a wedding planned, a whole future. I'm going to live my life without someone who thinks I'm boring but stable. I took a long drink. I'm going to find someone who doesn't need excitement on the side because being with me is enough. And I'm going to be a lot more careful about who I trust. Amen to that, Melissa said softly. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the other bar patrons, listening to the jukebox play classic rock, letting the adrenaline slowly drain away. You know what the worst part is? I said eventually. I really did love her. Or I loved who I thought she was. That's what hurts. Not the cheating, exactly, but the realization that the person I fell in love with never really existed. I know, Melissa said. Graham could be so sweet, so attentive. Then I'd find lipstick on his collar and realize it was all an act. He was just playing a role, and I was the audience. Well, you gave him a hell of a final performance tonight, Mike said. Serving him divorce papers in front of everyone, that was stone cold. I've been planning it for weeks. I just needed the right moment. She smiled. Jack provided the perfect opportunity. Happy to help. I raised my bottle. To new beginnings? To new beginnings, they agreed. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Lila, Claire's bridesmaid. Just wanted you to know, you did the right thing. She's been awful to you, and everyone knew it. Good luck. Then another, from one of my groomsmen. Dude, that was legendary. Drinks on me next week. And another, from Claire's cousin. Thank God someone finally called her out. She's been playing these games for years, I said, showing the messages to Mike and Melissa. Apparently, I'm not the only one who noticed. People always notice, Melissa said. They just don't usually say anything. It's easier to pretend everything's fine, to not rock the boat. What you did tonight, what we did, was refuse to pretend. Think there will be fallout? Mike asked. Definitely, I said. Claire's family has money and connections. They'll probably try to spin this somehow, make me look like the bad guy. But I have evidence, witnesses, and the truth that counts for something. Plus, Melissa added, everyone saw her reaction. The crying, the excuses, the blaming. That's not how innocent people act. We stayed at the bar until closing time, talking and laughing, sharing war stories about Claire and Graham, processing what had just happened. By the time we parted ways, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of the lie was gone, replaced by the clean, sharp clarity of truth. Mike drove me home, pulling up outside my building as the city lights reflected off the dark water of the harbor. You okay, man? He asked. Really? Yeah, I said, and meant it. I'm better than okay. I'm free. What are you going to do tomorrow? Sleep in, cancel a wedding, maybe go for a run, start figuring out who I am without Claire. I opened the car door. Thanks for having my back tonight. Always, brother. That's what friends do. I went up to my apartment, poured myself a whiskey, and stood at the window looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Claire was probably still crying, still trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. Graham was probably fighting with Melissa, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Melissa. Thank you for everything. You gave me my self-respect back. I typed back. You did that yourself. I just provided the venue. Still, if you ever need anything, I'm here. We survivors have to stick together. Deal. Good luck with the divorce. Good luck with your life. Something tells me you're going to be just fine. I set down my phone and raised my glass to my reflection in the window. To the man who'd been played for a fool but had refused to stay foolish. To understanding, to truth, to the messy, complicated, beautiful freedom of refusing to be someone's backup plan. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and logistics, canceled plans and difficult conversations. But tonight, I was just a man who dodged a bullet and lived to tell the tale. And that was enough.